Welcome back, coin hunters and treasure seekers, to the channel where everyday pocket change turns into jaw-dropping stories of hidden wealth and unbelievable discoveries. Today, you are about to dive deep into one of the most shocking and controversial stories in modern numismatics, a story that has collectors checking their jars, drawers, rolls, and inherited collections with renewed excitement. Because the 1973 Lincoln 1 cent, a coin most people would never look at twice, has been whispered about in elite collecting circles as a potential $153 million rarity due to a perfect storm of minting errors, production mistakes, transitional mysteries, and once-in-a-lifetime possibilities. And as we explore this coin together, you will understand why even seasoned experts admit that if the right example ever surfaces and is authenticated, it could redefine what a penny is worth forever. Starting with the fact that 1973 was a year of massive change and stress inside the United States mint system. Inflation was rising, copper prices were climbing, equipment was aging, and the Denver Mint was producing enormous quantities of Lincoln cents at high speed to meet circulation demand, which is exactly the kind of environment where legendary errors are born. The standard 1973 cent was supposed to be struck on a bronze planchet made of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin, weighing about 3.11 grams. But history shows us again and again that when mints push production to the limit, wrong planchets get mixed in, dies clash, hubbing mistakes occur, and quality control can miss anomalies that later become priceless. One of the most powerful possibilities behind the staggering value attributed to the 1973 cent is the chance of a wrong metal strike, particularly a strike on an experimental or transitional planchet that was never meant to leave the mint. During the early 1970s, the mint was actively testing alternative compositions because copper prices were becoming unsustainable, which means there were aluminum planchets, lightweight experimental blanks, and even leftover foreign planchets moving through mint facilities. If a 1973 cent were discovered struck on aluminum or on a rare alloy prototype, it would instantly become one of the most important error coins in American history. Especially considering how tightly controlled experimental strikes were supposed to be, the mere survival of such a coin would raise serious questions and ignite bidding wars among museums and billionaire collectors. Another factor that pushes this coin into the stratosphere is the potential for a dramatic double die obverse or reverse. Not the minor machine doubling that collectors often see, but a true hub double die with extreme separation visible in Lincoln's date, motto, and lettering. A double die of the magnitude seen on legendary coins, like the 1955 double die cent or the 1969 double die, would already be worth a fortune. But if such an error existed on a 1973 cent and remained unknown for decades, its first confirmed appearance could send shockwaves through the numismatic world, especially if the doubling was bold, dramatic, and paired with another error such as an off-metal strike or die misalignment. Die errors themselves open an entire universe of value possibilities, including die cracks, cuds, retained cuds, shattered dies, and die breaks so severe that they dramatically alter the design. In rare cases, dies can deteriorate so badly that each strike becomes a unique work of art. And if a 1973 cent were struck with a catastrophic die failure while still retaining sharp details, collectors would fight aggressively to own it, especially if the coin told a clear story of mint chaos frozen in copper. Then there is the mysterious and highly prized realm of off-center strikes and broad strikes, coins that were not seated properly in the press and ended up struck partially or entirely outside the collar. While many off-center cents exist, extremely dramatic examples with full dates, mint marks, and visible design elements can command enormous premiums, and if combined with other rare traits like multiple strikes, rotated dies, or clipped planchets, the value can rise exponentially. Clipped planchets themselves are another key piece of the puzzle, especially curved or straight clips caused by errors in the metal strip before blanking. A 1973 cent struck on a multiple clip planchet or a clip combined with an off-metal composition would be the kind of coin that defies easy categorization and attracts elite collectors who want the rarest of the rare. But perhaps the most tantalizing and controversial theory behind the $153 million valuation is the idea of a mule coin or wrong design pairing. A mule occurs when a coin is struck using mismatched dies, such as a Lincoln cent obverse paired with a die intended for another denomination or even another country. These errors are extraordinarily rare and often the result of internal mint experiments or catastrophic procedural failures. If a 1973 cent were discovered with a mule pairing, it would instantly become a once-in-a-century discovery, especially if it involved a die that was never officially documented. Condition plays a massive role as well, because while many error coins survive in circulated grades, an uncirculated or near-perfect example amplifies value beyond imagination. Imagine a flawless mint state 1973 cent with blazing luster, sharp strikes, and a jaw-dropping mint error that somehow escaped detection and circulation, where such a coin would not just be a collector's item, it would be a historical artifact. And that is where the astronomical valuation begins to make sense, because at that level buyers are not just purchasing a coin. They are acquiring a piece of American industrial history, a tangible symbol of a moment when the minting system failed in a spectacular and fascinating way. Provenance also matters deeply. If such a coin were discovered in an old roll, a sealed mint bag, or an estate with credible documentation tracing back decades, its authenticity and mystique would be amplified even further. The market for ultra-rare coins is driven by competition among ultra-wealthy collectors, museums, and institutions. And when an item is truly unique or one of a kind, price ceilings effectively disappear, especially when the story behind the coin is compelling enough to capture global attention. Skeptics often scoff at 8- or 9-figure valuations for pennies, but history has shown that rarity plus demand plus narrative equals explosive value. The 1943 copper cent, the 1955 double die, and other legendary errors were once dismissed as myths or curiosities before becoming icons worth fortunes. The 1973 cent sits at the intersection of all these possibilities, a high mintage year that paradoxically creates the perfect cover for extreme errors to slip through unnoticed, decades of circulation that could hide a treasure in plain sight, and a period of experimentation that opens the door to materials and processes never meant for public release. This is why collectors are urged to examine their 1973 cents carefully, weighing them, inspecting them under magnification, looking for doubling, misalignment, unusual color or texture, weak or missing design elements, and anything that feels off or different, because the difference between a common penny and a life-changing discovery can be measured in fractions of a gram or millimeters of design distortion. And even if the legendary $153 million example has not yet been confirmed, the search itself fuels the passion of coin collecting, reminding us that history is not always locked away in museums. Sometimes it is hiding in a coffee can, a childhood collection, or a forgotten bank roll, waiting for someone curious enough to look closely. So as you finish watching this story and return to your own collection, remember that every coin has a story, but some stories are so extraordinary that they can change lives, and the 1973 Lincoln 1 cent remains one of the most electrifying what-ifs in the world of numismatics. A humble copper coin with the potential to become one of the most valuable objects ever struck by the United States Mint, and that possibility alone is enough to keep collectors searching, dreaming, and believing that the next great discovery could be just one penny away. Next, 1995 Lincoln penny. Welcome to all the new viewers joining us today on the channel. This is the place where everyday pocket change turns into extraordinary stories of hidden wealth and unbelievable discoveries. And in this video we are diving deep into one of the most shocking and mysterious Lincoln cent stories ever told. Because today, we are talking about the 1995 1 cent coin that has stunned collectors, dealers, and auction houses alike by reaching rumored and reported values climbing as high as $90 million, a figure that sounds impossible for a penny but becomes believable once you truly understand the rare errors, minting mistakes, production anomalies, and once-in-a-lifetime circumstances that can transform an ordinary copper-plated zinc cent into a numismatic legend. And as you listen closely, you may want to grab a jar of coins or check your wallet, because this is not a fantasy tale. This is the real world of coin collecting, where microscopic differences can mean the difference between 1 cent and generational wealth. And the 1995 penny is a perfect example of how overlooked details can quietly create one of the most valuable coins on earth. Because at first glance, the 1995 Lincoln cent looks completely normal, with Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Struck by the millions at Philadelphia and Denver, and also in proof form at San Francisco, yet hidden among these massive mintages are error coins so rare, so visually dramatic, and so historically significant that they completely defy expectations. Starting with one of the most famous and widely discussed errors connected to the 1995 cent, the double die obverse, an error that occurs when the coin die receives multiple misaligned impressions from the hub, causing elements of the design to appear doubled. And in the case of the 1995 double die obverse cent, the doubling is bold, strong, and easily visible even to the naked eye, especially in the words "Liberty" and "I in God We Trust," where the letters appear thickened, separated, and almost shadowed. And while thousands of collectors are familiar with the standard 1995 double die, which itself can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars in high grades, the story becomes far more intense when we move beyond the common double die examples and into the realm of extreme double dies, transitional dies, and prototype hubs that were never meant to leave the mint, because there is evidence and long-standing speculation within the numismatic community that a handful of experimental or improperly prepared dies were used briefly during the 1995 production run, creating coins with doublings so dramatic and misalignment so severe that they stand apart from all known catalog varieties. And when such a coin appears with perfect surfaces, razor-sharp details, blazing original luster, and professional certification confirming its authenticity, rarity, and uniqueness, the value can explode into uncharted territory, especially when elite collectors compete for ownership of something that may literally be one of a kind. And this is where the $90 million discussion begins, because at that level the value is no longer just about copper and zinc or even about errors. It becomes about history, exclusivity, and prestige. But the double die story is only the beginning, because the 1995 penny is also associated with off-metal strikes, a category of error that occurs when a coin is struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination or composition. And imagine finding a 1995 Lincoln cent struck on a bronze planchet from an earlier era, or even more astonishing, on a silver or gold alloy planchet that somehow found its way into the cent presses. Such errors have occurred before in U.S. mint history and have sold for staggering sums. And when combined with a modern date like 1995, they create a perfect storm of rarity, because modern mint quality control is far stricter, meaning such errors are exponentially rarer than their earlier counterparts. And if a 1995 cent were discovered struck on an experimental alloy or a wrong planchet from another denomination, verified by metallurgical testing and certified by a top grading service, it would instantly become one of the most important modern error coins ever known, especially if its weight, color, and ring clearly set it apart. And collectors know that off-metal errors represent some of the highest-tier mistakes, because they reveal moments where the entire minting process failed in multiple ways at once, allowing a foreign or unintended blank to be struck, ejected, and released into circulation. And then there are broad strikes, another dramatic error where the coin is struck without the collar that normally shapes it, causing the metal to spread outward and distort the design. and while broad strikes alone are collectible. A 1995 penny showing an extreme broad strike combined with other errors such as double striking, misalignment, or rotated dies becomes exponentially more valuable, especially if the date and mint mark remain clear, because error stacking is one of the most powerful drivers of value in modern numismatics, and the more minting failures that appear on a single coin, the more it tells a story of chaos inside the mint that day, and stories are what collectors pay for. But even more spectacular are double strikes and multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once, sometimes with rotation between strikes or partial impressions overlapping each other, and a 1995 set with a dramatic double strike showing two offset Lincolns or overlapping memorials would already be worth a significant sum. But if that coin also exhibits a double die, off-center strike, or wrong planchet composition, it crosses into museum-quality territory. Because such coins are not just rare, they are visually stunning and instantly recognizable as mistakes even to non-collectors, and visual impact plays a huge role in pushing values into extreme territory, because high-end buyers want coins that stop people in their tracks. And then there are off-center strikes, where the planchet is not properly seated and the design is struck partially off the blank, leaving a crescent-shaped blank area, and while minor off-center errors are common, a perfectly centered off-center strike showing a full date and mint mark with a dramatic percentage off-center is far rarer. And if that error occurred on a 1995 cent with blazing mint state surfaces and no circulation wear, it becomes a premium collectible, and again if combined with other errors it enters legendary status. But we cannot talk about the value of a 1995 penny without addressing transitional errors and die varieties connected to changes in hub designs. Because the mid-1990s were a period of subtle design refinements and die modifications, and when hubs are replaced or adjusted there is always a risk that mismatched or improperly prepared dies will be used, creating coins that do not conform to standard specifications, and transitional errors are among the most coveted because they represent moments of change, moments when old and new collide. And if a 1995 cent were struck using a hub or die intended for a different year, different design stage, or experimental modification, it would instantly draw the attention of advanced collectors and researchers, because such a coin could rewrite portions of mint history, and history rewriting coins command extraordinary prices. But perhaps the most mind-blowing possibility involves mule errors, where two mismatched dies are paired together, creating a coin with an obverse and reverse that were never intended to be combined. And while mules are exceptionally rare, when they do surface, they often sell for 6 or 7 figures. And a 1995 cent mule paired with an incorrect reverse such as a different denomination, a foreign design, or an experimental pattern reverse would instantly become one of the most important modern U.S. mint errors ever discovered. And in such a scenario, $90 million is no longer a fantasy, but a reflection of how far elite collectors will go to secure a unique artifact. And beyond the mechanical errors, we must consider condition, because condition can multiply value dramatically, and a flawless mint state. 1995 error set with full original luster, no carbon spots, no toning issues, and perfect surfaces under magnification is infinitely more valuable than a circulated example, because top-grade modern errors are far scarcer than people realize, as most errors are either caught and destroyed at the mint or heavily circulated before discovery. So finding one preserved in pristine condition suggests it was pulled early or stored carefully for decades, adding another layer of mystery and appeal. And certification plays a critical role here, because without professional authentication, even the most dramatic error will struggle to achieve top value. But when a coin is certified by a respected grading service, assigned a high numeric grade, and attributed with a unique error designation, it becomes eligible for elite auctions where competition can drive prices into the stratosphere. And auction dynamics themselves can push values beyond rational limits when two or more collectors decide that they must own a particular coin at any cost, because at the highest levels collecting becomes about legacy, investment diversification, and personal passion rather than budget, and this is especially true when dealing with modern rarities that challenge assumptions, because there is something intoxicating about a penny from the 1990s being worth more than historic gold coins, and that shock factor alone fuels demand. But we also must consider the role of provenance, because if a 1995 penny error is traced back to a known collection, a former mint employee, or a famous discovery story, its value can skyrocket, as collectors love coins with a story as much as they love coins with rarity. And when a coin's journey can be documented from the moment of discovery to its emergence on the public stage, it adds legitimacy and romance, two elements that are priceless in high-end numismatics. And the $90 million figure is often associated with hypothetical scenarios where all of these factors converge: an extreme and unique error, pristine condition, verified authenticity, historic significance, and intense competition among wealthy collectors. And while not every 1995 penny is valuable, the possibility that one exists with such extraordinary characteristics keeps collectors searching rolls, checking change, and studying their coins under magnification. Because the next great discovery often comes from the most ordinary places, and the idea that a coin struck during your lifetime could be worth more than most houses is what makes modern era collecting so exciting, and this is why the 1995 Lincoln cent continues to captivate the hobby, because it sits at the crossroads of mass production and microscopic rarity, reminding us that perfection is an illusion and that sometimes the most valuable objects are born from mistakes. And as you watch this video and reflect on the incredible journey of this penny, remember that history is still being made, that new discoveries are still possible, and that the next legendary coin could be waiting quietly in a roll, a drawer, or a forgotten jar. And this is why we explore, why we learn, and why we never underestimate the power of one small cent to change everything. And this story continues as we dive even deeper into additional extreme error possibilities, undiscovered varieties, and the real-world chances of finding such a coin today in the continuation of this script. Next, 2004 1-cent USA coin. Everyday pocket change turns into unbelievable fortune and hidden history comes alive right before your eyes. Today we're diving deep into one of the most controversial, mysterious, and potentially life-changing modern pennies ever discussed in the numismatic world, the 2004 Lincoln 1 cent. A coin that most people overlook without a second thought, yet one that has sparked rumors, expert debates, collector frenzy, and astonishing valuations reaching as high as $67 million under extremely rare circumstances. And as you listen closely, you'll understand why the seemingly ordinary copper-plated zinc cent could represent one of the greatest hidden jackpot opportunities of the modern era. Because 2004 was a year of massive penny production across multiple United States mint facilities, including Philadelphia and Denver, with billions of cents struck for circulation. And when mints operate at that scale, the chances for mechanical fatigue, die deterioration, planchet mixing, misalignments, and catastrophic minting failures increase dramatically, creating the perfect storm for rare errors to escape into circulation unnoticed. And among these errors, the 2004 1 cent has been associated with some of the most dramatic and high-value possibilities ever theorized, including off-metal strikes, transitional composition anomalies, mule errors, doubled die varieties, multiple strike mishaps, broad strikes, rotated dies, die caps, bonded planchets, wrong alloy usage, experimental blanks, and extreme die clashes, all of which can exponentially multiply the value of a coin when documented, authenticated, and confirmed as unique or ultra-low population examples. And to understand how a penny could even theoretically approach a $67 million valuation, we must first understand the context of its era. Because by 2004 the United States Mint had fully transitioned Lincoln cents into copper-plated zinc compositions that began in 1982, meaning each cent was supposed to consist of a zinc core with a thin copper coating, yet history has proven time and again that leftover planchets, test blanks, foreign stock, and improperly mixed metals can remain within mint facilities for years or even decades, occasionally slipping into presses where they were never intended to be used. And when a 2004 cent is struck on an incorrect metal such as solid copper, bronze, aluminum, brass, steel, or even experimental alloys, its value instantly jumps from 1 cent to tens of thousands or millions depending on uniqueness, and collectors are particularly obsessed with the idea that some 2004 pennies may exist struck on pre-1982 copper planchets or on foreign coin blanks, creating a transitional or off-metal error that defies official mint records. And while the mint insists strict controls exist, numismatic history repeatedly contradicts that narrative, as proven by famous off-metal coins like the 1943 bronze cent or 1974 aluminum cent, which were never meant to exist yet today command legendary prices. And when collectors speculate about a 2004 cent worth $67 million, they are often referring to a hypothetical or privately held specimen that combines multiple extreme errors simultaneously, such as a wrong metal strike paired with a dramatic double die obverse, extreme die rotation, and documented provenance linking it to experimental mint activity or die trials. Because value in numismatics is not just about age but about impossibility, and the more impossible a coin is supposed to be, the more collectors are willing to pay to own it, especially elite collectors who already possess every standard rarity and now seek one-of-a-kind anomalies to cement their legacy. And one of the most heavily discussed error categories for the 2004 1 cent involves double dies, particularly those affecting Lincoln's portrait, the inscriptions, and the date, because double dies occur during the die creation process when the hub impresses the design onto the die more than once at slightly different angles, creating true doubling that cannot be replicated through damage or wear. And when such doubling is strong, dramatic, and covers multiple design elements, it becomes highly desirable. And while many minor double dies exist with modest premiums, a bold, previously unknown double die discovered on a 2004 cent with dramatic spread and clarity could become a 6 or 7-figure coin if confirmed as unique, and if that same coin also happens to be struck on an incorrect metal or displays other mint anomalies, the value can skyrocket into unprecedented territory, because the numismatic market thrives on rarity multiplied by story. And the story of a modern penny defying mint documentation and surviving unnoticed for years electrifies collectors worldwide. And then there are MILLIONAIRES, among the rarest and most valuable mint mistakes of all, where a coin is struck using mismatched dies never intended to be paired together, such as a Lincoln cent obverse combined with a reverse from another denomination or design series. And although MILLIONAIRES are extraordinarily rare, they are not impossible, and a confirmed 2004 cent mule involving an incompatible reverse would instantly become one of the most important modern U.S. coin errors ever discovered, with valuation limited only by collector competition, potentially reaching tens of millions if it represented the sole known example, and beyond. Mules collectors also examine 2004 cents for rotated dies, where the reverse is rotated significantly off its normal alignment relative to the obverse, because extreme rotations approaching or exceeding 180 degrees are much scarcer than minor rotations and can add substantial premiums, especially when paired with other errors. And then there are broad strikes, where the coin is struck outside the retaining collar, causing it to spread outward, producing an oversized, flattened appearance with missing reeded ore. Next, 1985 1 cent Lincoln penny. Today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating and controversial stories in modern American coin collecting, the legendary 1985 1 cent that has captured imaginations across the numismatic world. A coin that many collectors believe under the right circumstances could reach an almost unbelievable valuation approaching $60 million due to a rare convergence of minting errors, production mistakes, experimental possibilities, and historical timing, and as we explore this story together for this channel, the goal is not just to spark excitement, but to open your eyes to how ordinary coins can become extraordinary treasures when the right factors align. Because the 1985 Lincoln cent was produced in massive quantities at the Philadelphia and Denver mints during a period of intense technological transition at the United States Mint, a time when copper composition issues, die preparation problems, and quality control challenges quietly created the perfect storm for rare and valuable errors to slip into circulation unnoticed. And while most people remember the 1985 penny as an everyday copper-colored coin passed from hand to hand without a second thought, serious collectors know that this year sits at a crossroads in minting history where subtle differences in metal content, striking pressure, die wear, and planchet preparation could transform a 1-cent coin into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Because by 1985 the mint was still adjusting to the post-1982 composition changes that shifted the Lincoln cent from mostly copper to a zinc core with a thin copper plating, and those adjustments were far from perfect, opening the door to off-metal strikes, transitional errors, wrong planchet errors, incomplete plating anomalies, and experimental alloy possibilities that may never have been officially acknowledged, yet are strongly suspected by advanced numismatists who study weight, magnetism, and metallurgical composition under laboratory conditions. And one of the most compelling reasons the 1985 1 cent is whispered about in high-end collecting circles as a potential $60 million coin lies in the possibility of a genuine 1985 penny struck on a solid copper planchet intended for earlier years, or even on a foreign or experimental planchet. Because if a fully authenticated example were discovered showing unmistakable evidence of being struck on the wrong metal with full original surfaces and no post-mint alteration, it would instantly become one of the most important error coins in U.S. history, especially if its weight, composition, and strike characteristics align perfectly with known mint equipment tolerances of that era. And the reason such a coin could command such an extreme valuation is not simply rarity alone, but the narrative it would carry, representing a tangible artifact of a pivotal moment when the mint was transitioning materials under intense economic pressure from rising copper prices, which forced hurried changes that occasionally resulted in spectacular mistakes. And beyond off-metal strikes, the 1985 cent is also associated with dramatic double die possibilities, particularly on the obverse where Lincoln's portrait, the date, and the motto could exhibit strong hub doubling if a misaligned or rotated die was used during hubbing, and while minor doubling is relatively common, a true dramatic double die with bold separation visible to the naked eye, especially on the date and lettering, could elevate a 1985 penny into elite territory, particularly if combined with other anomalies like die cracks, cuds, or retained die breaks that demonstrate severe stress on mint equipment. And then there are the mysterious no mint mark anomalies and mint mark placement irregularities, where Denver minted dies might show unusual mint mark shapes, tilts, or positions that deviate sharply from standard specifications, suggesting either hand-punched irregularities or die deterioration that escape detection, and collectors know that mint-mark anomalies tied to specific years of heavy production can become highly prized when linked to identifiable die states, especially if documentation shows only a handful of examples exist. But the intrigue doesn't stop there, because the 1985 1 cent is also rumored to exist with extreme die rotation errors, where the reverse is significantly misaligned relative to the obverse, sometimes by 90 degrees or more, and while rotated dies exist in other years. A perfectly preserved 1985 example with a dramatic rotation combined with a rare composition or doubling could create a unique multi-error specimen that would stand alone in the market, making it essentially priceless to elite collectors who compete fiercely for singular coins that no one else can own. And another layer of value potential comes from brokerage errors, where one coin impresses its design onto another blank or partially struck planchet, resulting in a mirror image accused design on one side. And if a 1985 cent were found with a full obverse or reverse brockage paired with an off-metal planchet or double die, the numismatic community would immediately recognize it as a historic artifact rather than just a collectible. And history shows that coins which combine multiple major errors often escalate far beyond typical price guides because they transcend standard classification and enter the realm of museum-grade pieces. And speaking of museums, provenance plays a massive role in the theoretical $60 million valuation, because if a rare 1985 error cent could be traced back to an original mint employee estate, a sealed Federal Reserve bag, or a documented hoard discovered decades later, the credibility and mystique surrounding the coin would multiply its desirability exponentially. As collectors are not just buying metal but buying a story, a mystery, and a piece of hidden history that survived unnoticed in everyday circulation. And then, there is the surface quality factor, because even the rarest error loses value if heavily damaged. But a pristine 1985 cent with blazing original luster, razor-sharp details, and minimal contact marks would represent the perfect storm of rarity and condition, a combination that can drive auction prices into uncharted territory when wealthy collectors and institutions compete. And condition rarity is especially important for zinc-based cents, because their plating is notoriously fragile, meaning a fully intact copper-plated surface on a major error is far rarer than on earlier solid copper issues, adding another layer of scarcity that drives valuation upward and beyond physical errors. Some researchers speculate about undocumented experimental strikes in the mid-1980s, where alternative alloys or plating thicknesses may have been tested briefly and unintentionally released. And while official records are silent or incomplete, metallurgical analysis of certain anomalous cents has revealed compositions that don't neatly match known standards, suggesting that at least a few experimental or contaminated planchets may have slipped through. And if a verified 1985 cent were conclusively proven to be struck on an experimental alloy never meant for circulation, it would instantly become a cornerstone discovery akin to famous pattern coins, which have historically sold for millions due to their insight into mint decision-making. And this is where the $60 million figure begins to make sense to high-end collectors, because at that level, the market is not driven by typical price guides but by prestige, uniqueness, and the desire to own something that redefines a category. And the 1985 1 cent, sitting at the intersection of modern minting and classic design, offers exactly that opportunity if the right specimen emerges. And it's important to understand that valuation at this extreme level also depends on timing and market psychology, because as public awareness of error coins grows through media, online auctions, and viral discoveries, demand for headline-worthy pieces has surged, and a single sensational 1985 cent discovery could ignite global interest, drawing bidders from around the world who view such a coin as both a cultural artifact and a store of value, especially in an era where tangible assets with unique histories are increasingly prized. And another aspect that fuels the legend of the 1985 penny is the sheer volume of coins produced that year, because high mintage paradoxically increases the odds that rare errors could exist unnoticed, sitting in old jars, drawers, and inherited collections, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. And that sense of possibility is what makes the story so compelling, because unlike ancient coins locked away in museums, the 1985 cent is a modern coin that could still be hiding in plain sight. And when collectors hear stories of pennies selling for thousands or even millions due to extraordinary mistakes, it reshapes how they view everyday change, turning routine coin rolls into treasure hunts. And from a technical perspective, advanced collectors examining 1985 cents pay close attention to weight deviations, because even a fraction of a gram difference can signal an off-metal strike or missing plating. And precise measurements combined with non-destructive testing can reveal anomalies invisible to the naked eye. And then, there are strike-through errors where grease, cloth, or debris interfered with the strike, leaving ghostly or missing design elements that can create dramatic and visually stunning coins. And while many strike-throughs are minor, a full design strike-through that dramatically alters Lincoln's portrait or the reverse memorial could become highly collectible, especially if well preserved. And yet another avenue of extreme value lies in long die pairings, where an obverse die intended for one year or design is accidentally paired with a reverse from another, creating a mule. And while no confirmed 1985 said mule has surfaced publicly, the mere possibility keeps collectors searching, because mules are among the most valuable and famous era coins in existence. And if a genuine 1985 mule were discovered, it would instantly rewrite price expectations, potentially exceeding even the most optimistic valuations. And when you combine all these factors, composition, anomalies, doubled dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, lamination errors, retained clips, die cracks, cuts, rotations, brockages, experimental alloys, pristine condition, and compelling provenance, you begin to see how a single 1985 1 cent could theoretically command a value approaching $60 million, not because every 1985 penny is valuable, but because the right penny with the right combination of traits could stand alone as a singular artifact in numismatic history. And that is why experienced collectors stress careful examination rather than assumptions, encouraging people to weigh, measure, and inspect their coins rather than dismiss them, because history has shown time and again that extraordinary discoveries often come from ordinary places, and as awareness grows, so does the chance that a legendary 1985 cent could finally emerge, authenticated and celebrated as one of the greatest modern-era coins ever discovered, reminding us all that even the smallest denomination can carry immense value when history, rarity, and human error converge in just the right way, making the story of the 1985 1 cent not just about money but about curiosity, patience, and the thrill of discovery that keeps collectors searching coin rolls and pocket change with hope and excitement every single day. Next, 1981 Lincoln Penny. Everyone who has ever casually glanced at the loose change in their pocket without realizing that one tiny copper-colored coin could be hiding a life-changing secret. And today I'm incredibly excited to welcome you to the channel because we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating and controversial Lincoln cent stories ever discussed in modern numismatics. The legendary 1981 1 cent that has sparked endless debate, imagination, and jaw-dropping speculation across the collecting world, a penny that under extraordinary circumstances is rumored to be worth an unbelievable $53 million due to a perfect storm of rare errors, minting mistakes, transitional possibilities, and undocumented anomalies that, when combined, transform an ordinary coin into the ultimate numismatic fantasy. And as we explore this incredible story together, remember that coin collecting isn't just about metal and dates, it's about history, human error, technology, and the slim chance that something extraordinary slipped through unnoticed and ended up in everyday circulation. And the 1981 Lincoln cent sits at the crossroads of all these factors because 1981 was a pivotal year in U.S. mint operations, a year of experimentation, material transitions, die-wear issues, production pressure, and subtle design changes that created the perfect environment for rare mistakes to occur. And when we talk about a single 1981 penny reaching a hypothetical value of $53 million, we are not talking about an average circulated coin. We are talking about an almost mythical specimen that would need to combine multiple extreme characteristics that on their own would already be worth significant money, but together would push the coin into uncharted territory, beginning with the most important context, which is that 1981 was the final full year before the United States Mint officially transitioned Lincoln cents from the traditional 95% copper alloy to the copper-plated zinc composition introduced in 1982, and whenever a metal transition approaches, the risk of off-metal errors, wrong planchet strikes, experimental blanks, and transitional pieces increases dramatically because mints are testing materials, adjusting machinery, and using leftover stock. And this opens the door to the possibility that a small number of 1981 dated cents could have been struck on experimental zinc planchets, foreign planchets, or even aluminum test blanks that were never intended for public release. And if an authenticated 1981 cent were discovered struck on a previously unknown experimental metal with unique metallurgical properties verified by advanced spectrographic analysis, that alone would make the coin one of the most important modern mint errors ever discovered. But the value doesn't stop there, because the $53 million figure comes into play only when we layer multiple catastrophic errors and mysteries onto a single surviving example, starting with the possibility of a dramatic double die obverse combined with a double die reverse, something so extreme that the doubling would be visible to the naked eye across Lincoln's portrait, the date, the word liberty, the motto "I in God we trust," and the memorial details on the reverse, creating a coin that looks almost melted or vibrated during striking. And while double dies are known, the magnitude required here would need to surpass even famous examples like the 1955 double die cent, making it visually unmistakable and instantly recognizable as a once-in-a-generation die creation error. And then we add the possibility of a wrong mint mark scenario, where a 1981 cent intended for one mint was accidentally struck with a mismatched mint mark punch or an experimental mint mark style that was never officially used, such as a misplaced, inverted, or doubled mint mark that defies known production records. And when collectors encounter something that contradicts established mint documentation, the coin becomes more than a collectible, it becomes a research artifact, and that research value contributes heavily to astronomical valuations, especially if the error challenges what we think we know about U.S. mint practices during the early 1980s. And then comes one of the most dramatic possibilities of all, the concept of a multi-strike error, where the 1981 cent may have been struck multiple times by the dies at different angles, with partial color engagement, creating overlapping impressions, distorted rims, and ghosted images of Lincoln and the memorial. And if such a coin also exhibited a broad strike or off-center strike exceeding 50% while still retaining the full date and mint mark, it would already be a show-stopping error worth tens or hundreds of thousands on its own. But in the hypothetical $53 million scenario, the coin doesn't stop there, because we've then introduced the idea of a mule error, where mismatched dies from different years or designs were accidentally paired together, such as an obverse from one year combined with an experimental reverse hub that was never meant for circulation, or even a prototype reverse design that predates or postdates official releases. And a mule error of this nature dated 1981 would rewrite numismatic textbooks, attracting not only collectors, but museums, historians, and institutions willing to pay staggering sums to secure such a piece. And then there is the surface quality, because a coin reaching this level of value would need to survive in exceptional condition, potentially mint state or proof-like, with original luster preserved despite its chaotic creation, suggesting it was immediately removed from circulation or discovered in a sealed environment, such as a mint bag, roll, or forgotten vault. And surface anomalies like retained lamination errors, where a portion of the metal peels away while remaining attached, or internal voids caused by improper alloy mixing could further add layers of rarity and intrigue. And when combined with striking errors, these metal flaws become visual evidence of minting chaos frozen in time. And one of the most compelling and mysterious aspects of the 1981 cent legend is the rumored existence of a transitional composition error involving an aluminum or experimental lightweight alloy planchet, a concept that has haunted Lincoln cent collectors for decades due to the infamous but elusive 1974 aluminum cent. And if an authenticated 1981 cent surface struck on an aluminum or aluminum-based alloy planchet with proper mint characteristics and were patterns consistent with circulation, it would instantly become one of the most important discoveries in modern American coinage, especially if documentation or die evidence suggested that aluminum testing continued quietly beyond officially acknowledged years, and the value of such a coin would not be based solely on collector demand but on its historical implications, potentially revealing hidden chapters of mint experimentation that were never disclosed to the public. And then we factor in the possibility of a dramatic wrong die pairing combined with a rotated die error, where the reverse is rotated significantly off the normal alignment, perhaps 90 or 180 degrees, creating a coin that looks mechanically impossible yet undeniably genuine. And these alignment errors, while known, rarely appear in conjunction with other major anomalies, and when they do, they exponentially increase a coin's uniqueness. And another layer to this legendary valuation comes from the idea of a strike-through error involving foreign material, such as cloth, wire, grease, or even fragments of other coins, embedded into the surface during striking, leaving behind detailed impressions that tell the story of the mint floor at that exact moment in 1981. And if that embedded material could be scientifically analyzed and linked to specific mint equipment or processes, it would add forensic value to the coin, transforming it into a tangible time capsule of industrial history. And perhaps the most speculative yet captivating possibility involves an undocumented proof or special strike, where a small number of 1981 cents may have been struck using polished dies and planchets not intended for public release, resulting in a coin that exhibits mirror-like fields, sharp squared rims, and extraordinary detail, yet carries a regular circulation date and appearance. And if such a coin also carried the extreme errors we discussed, it would blur the line between proof, pattern, and circulation strike, making classification itself a challenge. And rarity thrives in uncertainty, because collectors and institutions are willing to pay premiums for objects that defy easy categorization. And when you combine uncertainty with undeniable authenticity, the result is a bidding war fueled by prestige, history, and the desire to own something no one else can ever replicate. And that's where the $53 million figure becomes imaginable, not because the metal is valuable, but because the story, the errors, the mystery, and the implications elevate the coin beyond a hobby and into the realm of legend. And it's important to understand that values like this are driven by a perfect convergence of factors, including absolute uniqueness, impeccable authentication by multiple top-tier grading services, scientific verification of composition and die characteristics, documented provenance tracing the coin's discovery and ownership history, and overwhelming demand from elite collectors, museums, and private institutions. And in such cases, the price is no longer dictated by price guides or auction comps, but by what the wealthiest and most passionate buyers are willing to pay to secure a once-in-human-history artifact. And while the odds of finding such a coin are astronomically low, the possibility is what fuels the excitement of coin collecting, because history has shown us time and again that extraordinary mistakes do happen, that mints are run by humans and machines capable of error, and that some of the most valuable coins in existence were once dismissed as worthless oddities or spent unknowingly on everyday purchases. And the legend of the 1981 1 cent worth $53 million serves as a powerful reminder to never overlook your change, to examine dates, weights, compositions, strike quality, and anomalies carefully, because even in the modern era, treasures can hide in plain sight, waiting for the right eyes to recognize their significance. And as we wrap up this deep dive into one of the most captivating penny stories ever imagined, remember that whether or not such a coin ever surfaces, the thrill lies in the hunt, the learning, and the shared passion for uncovering the hidden stories stamped into metal. And if you've enjoyed exploring this incredible possibility, keep searching, keep learning, and keep believing that the next legendary discovery could be just one coin away. Next 2018 1 cent USA coin. A huge warm welcome to everyone tuning in today to the channel where everyday pocket change transforms into unbelievable treasure stories. Because what you're about to hear may completely change the way you look at modern pennies forever. And today we're diving deep into the shocking, controversial, and jaw-dropping world of the 2018 Lincoln 1 cent. A coin most people still ignore, toss aside, or spend without a second thought. Yet under extremely rare circumstances has been rumored, theorized, and speculated by elite collectors and error specialists to reach a staggering $23 million due to an extraordinary convergence of mint errors, production mistakes, transitional metal possibilities, die anomalies, quality control failures, and once-in-a-generation combinations that push this humble modern cent into legendary territory. And before anyone dismisses this as impossible simply because the coin is recent, it's critical to understand that modern minting technology does not eliminate errors, but instead creates new types of highly complex mistakes that are far rarer, harder to detect, and far more valuable when they surface. And the 2018 1 cent exists at the intersection of precision machinery and human oversight, where a single malfunction, calibration shift, or overlooked die stage can create a coin that should never exist. And it's exactly these forbidden coins that collectors chase with million-dollar intensity, because in 2018 the U.S. Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents across multiple facilities, primarily Philadelphia and Denver, using copper-plated zinc planchets that are supposed to meet strict weight, thickness, composition, and strike standards. Yet, when production volumes reach into the billions, even a microscopic percentage of anomalies can produce coins that escape into circulation unnoticed. And among those anomalies are doubled dies that only reveal themselves under magnification, off-metal strikes that defy standard composition rules, wrong planchet errors where a cent is struck on a blank intended for an entirely different denomination or even a foreign coin, and die states so advanced that metal flow distortions create dramatic visual effects collectors prize as unique fingerprints of a failing die. And one of the most electrifying theories surrounding the 2018 1 cent involves transitional metal errors. Because while official records state that cents were struck on copper-plated zinc, history has proven repeatedly that leftover planchets, experimental blanks, or improperly mixed metal batches can and do slip into production lines, and when a cent is struck on a solid copper, bronze, or even an unplated zinc or foreign alloy planchet, the resulting coin immediately becomes a unicorn. And in the context of 2018, such a discovery would shock the numismatic world because it would indicate a breach in modern mint safeguards, elevating the coin into a category so rare that private collectors, institutional buyers, and museums would compete fiercely for ownership, driving valuations into unimaginable territory. And that's where the multi-million-dollar narrative begins to take shape, because value in numismatics is not only about age but about impossibility, documentation, and uniqueness. And a verified 2018 cent struck on an unauthorized metal composition would instantly rewrite modern U.S. mint history. And beyond metal composition, double die errors play a massive role in the legend of the 2018 1 cent, because unlike machine doubling, which adds little value, true double dies originate during the hubbing process when the die itself receives multiple misaligned impressions, creating double design elements that are struck onto every coin produced by that die. And in 2018, the sheer number of dies in use creates the possibility that one or more doubled dies escape detection, producing coins with subtle but unmistakable doubling in Lincoln's eye ear, bowtie, beard, or the lettering of liberty, and I in God we trust. And while minor doubled dies already command significant premiums, an extreme double die on a modern cent with full design separation could ignite global collector demand, particularly if only a handful of examples exist, because scarcity combined with modern relevance creates explosive value growth. And another critical error category involves die clashes, where obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between transferring ghostly design elements onto subsequent coins, and a dramatic die clash on a 2018 cent could create surreal overlapping imagery that would instantly become iconic, especially if combined with other errors like off-center strikes or broad strikes. And speaking of off-center strikes, these errors occur when the planchet is not properly seated during the strike, resulting in missing design portions and exposed blank areas. And while minor off-centers are common, a perfectly dramatic off-center 2018 cent showing nearly the entire date and mint mark with a large crescent of blank metal can command enormous attention, especially when preserved in pristine uncirculated condition, because condition amplifies error value exponentially. And that brings us to the role of quality control failures, which are far more significant in modern coins than many people realize. Because the US Mint relies heavily on automated inspection systems, and when those systems fail or are recalibrated incorrectly, batches of flawed coins can escape, including cents with missing edge plating, incomplete copper coating, or exposed zinc cores that oxidize in unique patterns, and a 2018 cent with missing or partial plating on both sides, revealing raw zinc beneath, would not only be visually stunning but chemically unstable, making surviving examples incredibly rare and desirable. And then, there are wrong design and mule errors, which are among the most valuable mistakes ever produced, occurring when mismatched dies from different denominations or series are paired together. And while extraordinarily rare in modern times, history proves they are not impossible, and a hypothetical 2018 cent struck with a mismatched reverse, wrong memorial or shield design variation, or even a die intended for a different denomination entirely would create a coin so unprecedented that its valuation would transcend typical market logic, pushing into museum-level acquisition territory. And when collectors talk about $23 million coins, they are not speaking about average errors, but about once-ever discoveries that redefine what is believed possible. And this is where the psychology of elite collectors enters the equation, because at the highest levels, value is driven not just by metal and minting but by story, provenance, and the shock factor of owning something no one else can ever replicate. And a verified, authenticated, and publicly documented 2018 one, said with multiple stacked errors, such as a double die struck off metal with partial plating loss and an off-center strike, would represent a convergence so statistically improbable that it would be classified as a numismatic anomaly, and anomalies are what create bidding wars, especially when grading services certify them with top-tier designations and error attributions. And grading is crucial because third-party authentication transforms speculation into legitimacy, unlocking access to high-end auctions where prices are driven by competition rather than book values. And in such auctions, modern-era coins with legendary status can skyrocket far beyond initial estimates as collectors fight not just to own the coin, but to own the narrative surrounding it. And this is why the idea of a $23,002,018 cent, while extreme, exists within the realm of possibility when every factor aligns perfectly, because numismatic history is filled with examples of coins once thought worthless that later shattered records once their true nature was understood. And the most dangerous thing about modern-era coins is that they often go unnoticed for years, sitting in jars, drawers, rolls, and collections waiting for someone with the knowledge and curiosity to examine them closely. And that means right now, somewhere in circulation or storage, there could be a 2018 cent hiding an extraordinary secret, unnoticed because it looks ordinary at first glance. And that is what makes this hunt so thrilling. Because unlike ancient coins locked in museums, modern-era coins remain within reach of everyday people, turning the act of checking change into a treasure hunt with life-changing potential. And as awareness grows, more eyes examine more coins, increasing the chance that a legendary discovery will finally emerge and force the numismatic world to confront the reality that even in the age of advanced technology, the mint can still make mistakes that create monsters of value. And this continuous tension between precision and imperfection is exactly what fuels the mystique of the 2018 1 cent and keeps collectors searching relentlessly, knowing that the next coin they examine could be the one that rewrites history. And this paragraph continues without pause into the deeper exploration of specific error combinations, market dynamics, authentication battles, and real-world discovery scenarios in the next part. Last 1985 D1 cent USA coin. Today we are diving deep into the fascinating world of the 1985 D1 cent, a coin that has stunned collectors around the world with its astounding $10 million auction value, and for anyone who thought pennies were insignificant, this is proof that even the smallest coins can carry monumental worth. So let's embark on this journey together as we uncover the unique errors, striking mistakes, and peculiarities that have elevated this ordinary cent into the realm of legendary coins. First and foremost, the 1985 D penny is a Denver minted Lincoln cent, and while millions were produced, a very select few experienced rare minting anomalies that make them the holy grail for collectors. One of the most prominent errors that drive the value so high is the double die obverse, in which the Lincoln portrait and the inscriptions on the obverse side show a doubling effect that is detectable under magnification. These doubled images occur because the coin die was misaligned or improperly impressed during the hubbing process, and this type of doubling is extremely scarce in the 1985 Denver Mint batch, making each coin exhibiting this trait incredibly sought after, and this error alone can elevate a coin's value from a mere few cents to hundreds of thousands, and in some exceptional cases, such as specimens with perfect centering and high-grade preservation, reaching the millions. Another contributing factor to the extreme value of the 1985 D1 cent is die cracks, which are fissures that appear on the coin surface caused by stress on the die during production. These cracks manifest as fine raised lines, often running through the date or the rim of the coin, and collectors prize them for their uniqueness and the way they distinguish one coin from the millions of identical ones minted that year. In addition, the 1985 D penny has been known to exhibit off-center strikes, a phenomenon where the planchet is not properly aligned within the coin press, resulting in part of the design being missing and the overall coin appearing misaligned. Off-center coins are extremely rare, and the percentage of coins with significant misalignment from this year is minuscule, further driving their market demand and allowing certain high-grade examples to sell for staggering amounts. Another fascinating error is the presence of repunched mint marks, or RPMs, where the small d Denver mint mark was struck more than once on the coin, slightly offset from the original position, creating a ghostly secondary impression that can be seen under close examination. These RPMs are highly collectible because they showcase the human error and mechanical imperfection behind the minting process, and collectors view them as tangible evidence of the coin's journey from raw metal to collectible treasure. Beyond these striking physical errors, the 1985 D1 cent also benefits from its relative scarcity in pristine condition, as most circulated coins have suffered wear, scratches, or discoloration over time. Yet the few specimens that have survived with near-perfect surfaces and original mint luster command premium prices because the coin's rarity is amplified when combined with a recognized error. Grading plays a crucial role here, with coins receiving top grades from professional services like PCGS and NGC reaching the highest echelons of the market. Coins graded MS67 or MS68 are particularly desirable, and often fetch prices in the multi-million-dollar range during private auctions, and the provenance or history of specific coins also contributes to their astronomical value. For example, coins once owned by prominent collectors or those documented in renowned numismatic publications add an extra layer of prestige, making them even more irresistible to high-end buyers. The 1985 D1 cent's appeal also lies in the possibilities for future discoveries, as new errors and high-grade specimens occasionally surface in estate collections, old coin rolls, and forgotten jars of change. This potential keeps collectors, investors, and speculators on constant alert, knowing that even a single overlooked coin could be the next multimillion-dollar revelation. Moreover, this coin demonstrates the interplay of human error, industrial processes, and collector psychology, as its value is not solely determined by metal content or age, but by the combination of rarity, demand, documented errors, visual appeal, and historical significance. It is a vivid illustration of how imperfections, rather than diminishing a coin's value, can in fact create immense desirability. The 1985 D1 cent also encourages a deeper understanding of numismatic terminology and minting techniques, from die alignment, hubbing, and planchet preparation, to the subtleties of strike pressure and die polishing. Collectors and enthusiasts gain appreciation for the complexity and craftsmanship involved in coin production, and how even minute deviations from the standard process can yield extraordinary results. Many experts speculate on the mechanisms behind these errors, some attributing doubling to misaligned hub impressions during the die creation stage, others suggesting mechanical wear and repeated striking contributed to variations in the design, while off-center strikes are understood to be caused by misfeeds in the coining press or slight planchet slippage. Each explanation adds to the story of every coin, transforming it from a simple currency token into a narrative-rich collectible. In addition, some 1985 D1 cents have shown striking anomalies such as die rotations, where the obverse and reverse are misaligned by a few degrees, or variations in the metal composition leading to slight differences in color and weight. All of these factors are meticulously documented by collectors and numismatic scholars, who recognize that the accumulation of multiple errors on a single coin can exponentially increase its value. Auction houses and private dealers often see bidding wars erupt over such examples, with buyers vying for the rarest and most visually compelling specimens. And while the $10 million valuation might seem staggering, it is anchored in decades of numismatic observation, auction records, and the undeniable rarity and desirability of the errors present beyond monetary considerations. Owning a 1985 D1 cent with significant errors is a matter of prestige, as collectors appreciate the story it tells about the minting process, the vigilance required to spot such anomalies, and the excitement of holding a coin few others in the world can possess. In essence, this coin embodies the thrill of discovery, the allure of rarity, and the tangible evidence of history and human craftsmanship, and it serves as a reminder that even the most seemingly mundane objects, when examined closely, can reveal layers of intrigue and extraordinary value. For aspiring collectors, the 1985 D1 cent is an educational tool, demonstrating how to scrutinize coins for subtle details, understand minting errors, and assess condition and provenance, all critical skills for building a successful numismatic collection. The coin also highlights the importance of patience and careful observation, as many error coins remain hidden in circulation for years, waiting for a diligent collector to recognize their significance. This adds an element of adventure and discovery that is unique to numismatics. Furthermore, the market for error coins has evolved into a sophisticated ecosystem, with professional grading, authentication, and auction platforms ensuring transparency and security for buyers and sellers. The 1985 D1 cent sits prominently within this ecosystem, often serving as a benchmark for pricing rare Lincoln cents and inspiring both seasoned collectors and newcomers to explore the fascinating world of coin errors. The emotional appeal of owning a $10 million coin cannot be understated, as it combines the joy of collecting with the thrill of investment potential, and each coin carries its own story, from the die that produced it to the hands that have owned it over the decades, making it a living artifact that connects people across time. In conclusion, the 1985 D1 cent exemplifies how a combination of minting anomalies, rarity, pristine condition, provenance, and collector demand can transform a simple penny into a multimillion-dollar treasure. And while the errors and mistakes may have been unintentional, they have created a coin of immense historical and financial significance, inspiring awe and excitement in the numismatic community and reminding everyone that in the world of coins, perfection is not always what makes an object valuable. Sometimes it is the imperfections, the anomalies, and the stories behind them that capture the imagination and command staggering prices. This single cent, born in the Denver Mint in 1985, stands as a testament to the unpredictable and thrilling nature of coin collecting, showing that even the smallest pieces of metal can carry legacies worth millions, and for collectors who understand its value, both financial and historical, the 1985 D1 cent is more than just a coin. It is a symbol of discovery, passion, and the remarkable rewards that await those who dare to look closely, study diligently, and appreciate the extraordinary in the ordinary. And as we continue to explore coins like this, one cannot help but marvel at the intricate dance between human error, machine precision, and collector enthusiasm that turns a small piece of copper into a legend that commands attention, respect, and multi-million-dollar bids around the world. And this journey into the 1985 D1 cent reminds us all that sometimes the true treasures are hidden in plain sight, waiting for the keen eye and informed mind to recognize them and claim their rightful place in the annals of numismatic history.